Take a look inside your heart. Is there any room for me? Tell me something I need to know. Red wine.
Story time about this girl who faked being Latina. So there was this girl who went to my school. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah is the queen of lies. In every subject we talk about, Sarah always, and I mean always, comes up with a lie that has to do with her life. Here's an example. What if we're talking about Tom Holland? She'd just come in and say, "Oh yeah, Tom Holland is my dad's friend. I met him once." You know, these types of lies. Another one is when she told everyone she's Latina. It was lunchtime in school, and we were talking about where we went for the summer. Sarah tells us that she went to Spain, and she started telling us on what she did there, and says that she's 50% Latina. She also said that she lived in Spain for 6 years, and if there is any person who lived in Spain for 6 years, they must know how to speak Spanish. And then my friend Kayla asked Sarah, "What does good morning mean in Spanish?" And then Sarah looks at us, looks back at her food, and said, "I don't know, I'm still taking Spanish lessons." And we just look at her that she doesn't even know what good morning means in Spanish. If she had lived in Spain for 6 years, she would have known what it meant. I don't know how, but that incident has spread around the entire school. Every person that walks past Sarah just says, "Buenos dias," basically teasing her about not knowing what good morning means in Spanish. And then Sarah didn't show up to school for 3 days after that. And oh boy, we haven't even gotten to the crazy part. The 3 days pass, and Sarah comes back to school. As soon as she walks into the class, everyone's eyes was on her. She came up, sat in her seat, and this lady showed up in a crop top, skinny jeans, fake nails, and fake lashes. And her hair was in a bun with edges. Yes, you heard me, edges. This lady is white. And in lunchtime, she took out a bag of hot Cheetos and some dipping sauce. I don't know if this was supposed to make us think she's Latina, but trust me, it didn't work. All of the freshmen and sophomores took out their phone and started filming her. This is where I kind of felt bad, but she ran to the bathroom crying, and she just stayed there and didn't show up to any classes for the rest of the day. Story time. So there was this one girl in 7th grade, let's call her Lexi. And Lexi used to sit next to me in class. And I was throwing a Halloween party later this week. I decided to write a list of what we're going to be doing at the party in class while Lexi's sitting next to me. She looks over at my notebook and sees it. And she was like, "I'm invited, right?" I looked at her and I just didn't say anything because I didn't want to tell her she's not. She got really excited and was like, "I'm going to be wearing a devil costume. Actually, no, I want to be the angel." And at the end of class, she told me to send her the location and information on her Instagram. And I remembered that Lexi had a lot of spam accounts and accounts she doesn't use. So I decided to send her the information on one of the accounts she doesn't use. 2 days later, I get a message from Lexi. She sent me a message from one of her real accounts. Then she told me that I forgot to send her the information for the party. I told her that I did send the location, but on her other account, and that I didn't know she stopped using it. Lexi didn't believe me, so I sent her a screenshot. Then I told her that since she didn't confirm, she can't come to the party because I had a limit of 20 people. Lexi got really mad and started calling me mean stuff, that I'm rude and forgetful. And then Lexi blocked me not just on Instagram, but on Snapchat and TikTok. Of course, I didn't care and just went on with my day. Fast forward to the next day, which was the day of my party. Things were going great. Me and my friends had an amazing time. But after an hour, I get a phone call from a random number. I didn't answer, number one, because the music was too loud and I was too busy with my friends. Maybe 10 to 15 minutes pass, and that number calls me again. I handed my phone to my friend and let her answer the phone. She told me that there was a person waiting for me in front of the house. I, of course, didn't want to go outside alone, so I let my friend Jason come out with me. As soon as we arrived to the front of the house, we see Lexi and her mother sitting next to her in her car. I just stood there in disbelief, not knowing what to do. Lexi got out of the car, looked at me and rolled her eyes, then looked at Jason and started talking to him. She was like, "Jason, can I come in?" And Jason didn't know what to say, but he said yes. And Lexi had the audacity to show up to my party after she blocked me on all of my social media. Lexi stayed with Jason and Jason's friend. I couldn't enjoy my night anymore after that. The next day in school, I told my teacher the story and she moved my place.
My freshman year of high school, I joined a competitive cheer team. As part of our uniform, we were required to wear our makeup exactly the same way every single time we performed. That included us wearing false eyelashes or using the 3D liquid lash extension mascara. At this point in my life, I had never worn false eyelashes before. I had tried putting them on a few times, but I always failed pretty miserably. And the 3D lash mascara always made a huge mess all over my face. Also, as a freshman in high school, my first homecoming was coming up. This is when I decided that I finally needed to figure out how to put on fake eyelashes. I had practiced putting them on a few times before the dance, but I would leave them on for just a few minutes before I took them off again. On the day of homecoming, I got ready about 4 hours before the dance because I also had to do my friend's makeup and take pictures and go to dinner. The eyelashes went on pretty smoothly and everything was going great. About halfway through the dance, my eyes started getting really itchy and my date just started ignoring me. Like for part 2. As a freshman in high school, my first homecoming was just around the corner. That's when I decided I needed to figure out how to wear fake eyelashes. I had practiced putting them on in the days leading up to the dance. On the day of homecoming, I got ready and did my makeup a few hours before the dance actually started. The eyelashes went on fine and they looked great. But about halfway through the night, my eyes started getting really itchy and my date started ignoring me. At first, I didn't think much of it and I just went and hung out with some friends. But as the night went on, my eyes started getting itchier and they started feeling really heavy. That's when I decided to call my mom to come pick me up. About 30 minutes later, my mom texted me and said she was outside of the dance waiting on me. When I got in my mom's car, the first thing I did was take off my heels and my eyelashes. That's when my mom turned and looked at me and my eyes were almost completely swollen shut. I had been having an allergic reaction to the latex and the eyelash glue for over 5 hours.
I got my best friend expelled. Story time. When I was in high school, I used to have this best friend named Kyle. And we used to mess with each other all the time. Like this one time, he smacked our gym teacher's butt and convinced him it was me, and I got suspended for like 2 days. So of course, I had to get him back. So when I returned to school, I came up with this prank that may have went a little too far. I stayed after school and waited for all the teachers to go home. Went to his homeroom class and destroyed it. I mean, I really messed it up. I dumped over the teacher's desk, took a permanent marker and wrote all over the students' desks. And then I took that permanent marker and signed Kyle's name on the whiteboard. The next day, Kyle got called to the office and I thought he was just going to get suspended like I did. But they actually decided to expel him. And he couldn't convince them that it wasn't him because our school didn't have cameras at the time. Until this day, he doesn't know it was me.
Story of the time I went off on my coworker. So a few months ago, I got a job as a hostess. Literally horrible decision. I have no idea why I did that. But anyway, there were these 2 girls that were best friends that worked there. And they both had the same name. We're gonna call them Sarah. There was blonde Sarah and brunette Sarah. So I think it was like my second shift where I was working with both of them. Blonde Sarah was working for the to-go orders, and then brunette Sarah was a waitress. The restaurant opened at 11, but customers wouldn't come until after 12, so they only put 2 servers on between 11 and 12. So this day I worked at 11, and when I got in there, it was brunette Sarah and then another server. And for whatever reason, everybody and their mother decided to go to the restaurant that morning, which as a hostess isn't good because I'm not supposed to be overwhelming the servers by like sitting them with a million people at a time, you know? So since this is one of my first shifts, I didn't know what to do, so I asked the manager, should I keep on sitting Sarah? Because the entire other person's section is full. And the manager was like, yes, you're gonna have to just keep sitting her. And I was like, well, she's gonna get really overwhelmed, are you sure? And then he was like, yeah, what else are we gonna do? And I was like, okay, I guess. So I filled Sarah's entire section. She looked so angry at me. And listen, I hated working there because all of the waiters and waitresses would get mad at me if their section was full. Like, it's not my fault. So as a hostess, I was also a busser. So I had to bring plates to the back. And the to-go order people were in the back. So when I go back there, I see brunette Sarah is with blonde Sarah. I would try to smile at them, but then they would just give me nasty looks. They were standing by the exit. I walk past them to get out, and they go, "Bleh."
I burned down the house. Story time. When I was a little kid, I used to love making potions. Not real ones, of course. I would just mix random things together like my mom's perfumes, her hair products, or just random stuff I found around the house. And yes, I would get in trouble every single time, but I still did it anyway. Now, normally when I made potions, they would be harmless. You know, no one would ever get hurt. Until this one day where I took it a little bit too far. So I decided I was gonna make a love potion. It was for this person I had a crush on, but that's besides the point. So at the time, in my head, you had to mix everything pink in your house together, write your crush's name on a piece of paper, set it on fire, and then drop it into the potion. Now, that sounds easy enough, but the problem was I made the potion flammable. I put all my mom's pink perfumes in it, and then on top of that, I put in a whole bottle of pink nail polish remover, which is extremely flammable. So as I was dropping the lit piece of paper with my crush's name into the potion, it caught fire. I tried to put it out, but I dropped it, and then the whole house caught fire.
There was this boy in my kindergarten class. We'll name him Stan. Stan was the kid who would pick his nose, eat weird lunches, and was the class clown, but like nobody laughed at anything he said because all his jokes were like poopy jokes. I don't know why I remember this. It's pretty random, but it's just one of those memories that have stuck with me throughout all these years. So this girl, we'll name her Bella. She was always trying to get everyone in trouble. She would tattletale on everyone. And I didn't have the typical kindergarten teacher. The one that's like, okay kids, we're gonna pass the ball around and say what we loved about our summer. And then we're gonna eat these cupcakes that I brought. No. My kindergarten teacher was like, why are you talking during nap time? Why are you packing your books at 2:59? We end at 3. So long story short, I was terrified of her. So anyway, the teacher told us to open our notebooks. Logan opened his to the middle of the book and not like the next clean page. And the teacher yelled at him. So I said to Bella, Logan's so stupid. Bella was like, ooh. Then she tattled on me.
Me, my husband, and our 15-year-old daughter, Georgia, went to my sister's place for lunch this past weekend. Georgia is very bright. She completed her exams early and is now studying more advanced material. She's a big fashionista, a lot more than I was at that age. She loves pretty clothes and outfits, and we're happy to get her as much as we can, provided she behaves well and keeps up the good grades. The lunch with my sister was fairly casual, but Georgia wore her new pink dress. My sister isn't as well off as we are, unfortunately, and she is raising 3 children on her own, and her job isn't a high-paying one. In the past, she asked me if Georgia could tone down her outfits when we come to visit because she doesn't want her kids being upset because they can't afford things like that. I do get my sister's point, but it's not down to me to police what Georgia wears. I've spoken to Georgia about it, but I left the final decision to her. Anyway, so we went for lunch and Georgia ended up getting into an argument when my sister's 13-year-old daughter Lucy asked about the dress and where it was from. Georgia answered that it didn't matter because Lucy couldn't afford it anyway. We told Georgia to shut up as soon as the comment left her lips, but it soon ended up with Georgia and Lucy screaming at each other. My sister made the kids vanilla milkshakes, and Lucy decided to throw hers all over Georgia, ruining the dress. Georgia burst into tears, and to be fair, my sister did bring her a change of clothes. I said that if the dress was permanently ruined, I wanted my sister to reimburse us. My sister has refused and said that it was our responsibility because my daughter wore an expensive dress despite being warned not to. The dress cost a couple of $100 and washing it has failed to completely remove the stains. Frankly, I don't care about my sister's warnings. We can't make Georgia wear what she doesn't want to, and it's not our problem that she can't control her child and stop her from ruining a beautiful dress.
Story of the time my neighbor tried to pierce my belly button when I was 8. So you guys know an awful lot about, my neighbor's situation. She was known as the bully of our street. So anyway, one day she's like, okay, we're gonna play kickball. And I hated playing kickball because you know what kickball was to her? Having me stand behind a tree while she kicked the ball at me. Repeatedly. And you know why I had to stand behind a tree? So that neither of our parents would be able to see what she was doing. So obviously I was like, no, I don't want to play kickball. And she was like, we'll either play kickball or we'll play house. And I was like, okay, let's play house. So we go up to her room unsupervised with the door closed. And she pulls out her toenail clipper.
and she tells me to pull up my shirt. I was like, absolutely not until you tell me what you're doing with that toenail clipper in your hand. She started convincing me that it wouldn't hurt and that it'll be a pretty belly ring when we're done. And I didn't know what a belly ring was, and she said an earring for your belly button. So I was like, oh, okay, word. Didn't go home with a belly ring.
So I, 22 female, love babies. I've always wanted kids, but I want to wait until I'm married to have them. I don't mind watching kids at all, but I dread going to an event and everyone just dumping their kids on me just because they know I like kids. Last month, my friend and a couple of others had lunch together to plan more of her wedding. I was at work and I was unable to attend. They decided that since I was okay with watching the bride's child, I should be okay with watching everyone else's kids too. They decided to set up a daycare-like area at the venue where I would watch the kids. I didn't even know they planned this until yesterday. I told my friend, the bride, that I would only watch her kid. That's all I agreed to. She argued that since I work in pediatrics and I actually like kids, I should have no problem handling 7 to 10 kids. I told her no, I only agreed to watch her child because it was her wedding. I tried to reason and say that if the other parents were willing to pay me for watching their kids, then I would be fine with it. But she said she didn't want to make them pay for something that should be free. Everyone else is telling me just to be nice and help her out because she's already stressed enough.
So a few days ago, I went to stay in a hotel with my friends near the beach. We ended up going outside to tan for about 2 hours. Now, my friends are used to tanning, but I haven't tanned since last summer, and even then I barely did, because I always get sunburnt. So 2 days ago is when we were tanning, and also the same day we got home. I felt fine when we got back home. The only thing that hurt me was the intense sunburn all over my entire body. Now, yesterday, I started feeling really nauseous. I ate a salad around 4 o'clock, and then around 9 o'clock, I ate a bag of apples. I felt so sick I decided to take a Tylenol. Not even 3 minutes after I took the Tylenol, I ended up throwing it up. All last night, I was a complete mess. My mom ended up sleeping in my bed with me just to take care of me. If you have really fair skin like me, always make sure that you put on a lot of sunblock. Because what I experienced last night and what I'm still experiencing is sun poisoning. So make sure you guys stay safe this summer, load up on the sunscreen, and just sit in the shade.
Something that is just a weird fear of mine is doctors pretending to be doctors. Like not actually having their licensure, but just playing the role, and secretly killing people while doing so. And yes, this has happened before. The most haunted hotel in America is known as the Crescent Hotel. I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but I loved staying up at night watching ghost hunters. I would run around with my little EMF detector seeing if I could find ghosts myself. Well, my favorite episode of Ghost Hunters actually covered the Crescent. They ended up actually making contact with one of the ghosts, but I never really deep dived into how creepy this hotel's history actually is. So the Crescent Hotel was built in 1986. And it was a resort for the wealthy, rich, and powerful. But pretty fast, they found this whole hotel to be very unmanageable. And it was weirdly very accident prone in the building process. There was a stonemason named Michael who passed away, but we'll get to that later. Well, it reopened in 1908 as a college for girls. This photo gives me very much Midsummer vibes. While this college was considered prestige, they covered up a death. Part 2 to the Crescent Hotel. Well, one of the girls in this conservatory ended up falling for a guy. She ended up getting pregnant, and it was a huge deal during this time to be unwed and pregnant. On top of this, her dad forbade her from being with him. So she threw herself off the top of the building. The college completely covered it up, went about their business, and kept up with their high-priced tuition. But they only lasted until 1924. Well, all the way in Iowa, a man named Norman Baker was a radio host. Very eccentric, had a big personality. And while there isn't a whole lot of information on how he came to this conclusion, he decided that he was going to be a doctor without any kind of license or experience. He claimed that he had discovered a variety of cures to numerous diseases, but it didn't take long for Iowa to figure out that he did not have the medical training, so they ran him out. Well, Mr. Baker was not giving up. And on his ventures where he could find a new place where he could cure people, he came across the Crescent. And in 1937, he opened the Baker's Cancer Curing Hospital. Hundreds of people checked into this hospital and hundreds did not check out. Part 3 to the Crescent Hotel. It honestly breaks my heart because so many sick and desperate people showed up to his hospital because he literally claimed that he had the cure. But what his cure was injections from a mixture of glycerin, alcohol, and tea from watermelon seeds and clover leaves. And these injections were apparently extremely painful and happening 5 to 7 times a day. Patients would be in severe pain. And when they started to get extremely sick, they would be separated off from everyone else in an annex that was once used as the servants' quarters from the hotel before. And to give some perspective on the creepiness of the hotel today, that place is now a suite that you can spend the night in. And Mr. Baker was considered to have killed about 300 people because there's 300 names that were never checked out. And he actually killed them indirectly because he made his nurses do all the injections.
he actually couldn't stand the sight of any medical procedure. He somehow got recognized by the American Medical Association and ended up making millions in today's money. And after people would pass away, he would take them down to the morgue, which is now the basement of the hotel. Part 4 of the Crescent Hotel. So you can still go down to this basement and look at all the gurneys, the wheelchairs, the medical equipment, along with a ton of jars. Some of these are filled with his concoction, some are filled with human remains. And as they've continued to build along the area, they have found more of Norman's things. Just as recent as 2019, they were excavating the area and ended up finding 500 items that included more jars filled with human remains like tumors and also more of his little cure. As you can imagine, with all of the death that happened here, this place is extremely haunted. Listed as being one of the top hotels you don't want to stay at. There's so many accounts of people staying here and talking about their experience along with photos online, and people sharing just how frightening it is. Well, besties, I think we should go stay there. It's only 3 hours away from me, so I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go drive. And I will be vlogging my experience for YouTube, which is linked in my bio. But in the meantime, if you want to hear about the specific ghosts that haunt this hotel, go to my Instagram, go to the middle Reels tab. It's really interesting and you get to learn how people outside of the hospital passed away.
Story of the time I was followed in the mall. So I was with my 2 friends. We were shopping at a store. When we first walked in, we noticed a guy staring at us. At first, we didn't think anything of it, but then my friend Victoria, P.S. Happy birthday, Victoria.
Thanks.
That he was following our every move. We tried to walk away to get rid of him, but every single time we turned the corner, he was there staring at us. So eventually we decided to stop browsing around the store and just check out the items that we got. And I kid you not, while we were waiting in line, this man was standing outside of the line and inching forward with every single step that we took. So say the next person goes to check out their stuff, we move an inch forward, and that guy moved an inch forward too. So he was always right behind us. So we decided to play his game and we got in the back of his van. No, I'm kidding. But we started staring at him back. Like all 3 of us, all 6 of our eyes were directed at this man. And you know what this guy did? This guy didn't break eye contact for a whole 5 seconds and then rolls his eyes and walks away.
Tell me your mom shouldn't be a mom without telling me your mom shouldn't be a mom. Growing up, my mom always complained about feeding me and giving me food. That was always an issue, but nobody ever believed me because when I showed them my fridge, they would see her stuff. I wasn't allowed to touch her stuff. She has gone, CPS called on her a million times because she has left me in parked hot cars in the summer in California. One time I wanted to go to her boyfriend's house for Christmas because they always gave me presents and stuff and she never really did. And all of a sudden I was ruining Christmas. Mind you, I was 6 years old. She punched me in the face when I was 8 years old because some person stole her wallet out of her bag, her open bag in Claire's because I wanted to go in Claire's. To this day, I still wish CPS took me away from her.
I work as an assistant for a really big fashion company. I had a defective wedding dress and my boss asked if I knew anyone we could give it to. My best friend recently got engaged, so it was perfect. When she posted on Instagram to thank me and my boss, my family caught wind of it and that's when the influx of calls came. I do not have a good relationship with my family. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 and my sister wasn't much better. They demanded to know why I gave the dress to my friend and not to my sister. I didn't even know she was engaged. They suggested I try to take it back from my friend as family should always come first. My sister even tried to call my boss to complain. I just got off the phone with my mom and this is how the conversation went. She says my sister is very upset about the dress and I told her she needs to get over it. My mom says I can make it up to them by giving her another dress. I posted one last night on my Instagram. It's a $12,000 dress and that's the one my sister wants. And I told her, you expect me to give you a $12,000 dress when you kicked me out when I was 16? My mom says, that was a long time ago and we're talking about your sister, not me. When I refused to give the dress, my mom says the least I can do is help her buy one. At this point I hang up and I've been avoiding them since then.
Name a time your mother was extremely toxic to you in front of your family and ended up embarrassing herself. I will go first. So we had gone to the beach, all of us together. I didn't get to see this family very often, so I really wanted to go. My mother kind of gave me the, yeah, I guess you could go kind of thing. She really didn't want me to. After we had gone to the beach, I had realized I had left something behind because somebody had moved our stuff. It was a necklace that I didn't want to bring into the ocean because I didn't want to lose it. Anyways, we're back at the car. We're trying to change our clothes, get the sand out, blah, blah, blah. And I bring it up to them. I said, hey, have you guys seen my necklace? Have you guys seen my necklace? And my mom chimes in and is like, you don't need to be asking them where your stuff is. You should have been responsible for your stuff. And I was like, but Mom, it got moved. And she's like, I don't care. We didn't want you on this trip anyways. Part 2. Okay, part 2 to my second video. So, anyways, she's like, you don't belong here. You weren't supposed to come. Nobody wanted you here anyways. It would have been much better if you just stayed home. You're an embarrassment to me, and you're just irresponsible, and that's why it's so hard to take you places, so hard to have you around, blah, blah, blah. Just continuously berating me in front of my family to the point where I'm on the verge of tears. My aunt walks over, and a couple others, they start comforting me, and she's just like, what are you doing? She doesn't deserve that. She ruins everything. This is what happens when I bring her with me and my fiance, my stepdad. And they basically looked at her and said, you know, we wanted her to come. There's no reason you should be treating her like this. She was more than welcome to come, and I'm glad that she came. And she kind of just huffed and pouted and said that I ruined her whole family relationship that day.
When I was younger, there was a girl I knew who lived in our neighborhood. None of the kids liked her because they claimed that she stinked and acted weird. When they talked about her, I kind of felt bad, so I became friends with her. Yeah, of course, I got the, why do you hang out with her? But she really wasn't all that bad. But her scent, they were kind of right about that. One day, she invites me over to her house, and she was very excited because she told me I was the first person to ever come over. And I felt so honored, so I went. But when I went into her house, it smelled very bad, almost nauseating, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be rude. Honestly, it was like 4 to 5 families in one house, to be honest. But she first introduced me to her stepmom. I said hi to her, but she just stared at me in disgust. Then we went to her room to play. As it got later, I told her I needed to go home, but she begged me to stay longer because she was scared. I told her I'd come tomorrow, and she just starts crying. She runs into her bed and falls into her sheets, which lifted her skirt. There were bruises all over her thighs. Let me know if y'all want a part 2. Part 2 about the girl I know who lived in my neighborhood. So it's late and it's time for me to go home. She said she was scared and starts crying. Then she runs into her bed and flops into her sheets. Her skirt lifted and there were bruises all around her thighs. I ask her, what happened? She looks down and quickly pulls her skirt over her bruises. I ask, did someone do that to you? And she says she can't tell me. I ask why. She responds, if I do, they're going to hurt me. So I ran downstairs to her stepmom and told her what I saw. She sits and laughs in my face. I was so confused and asked her, are you going to help her? And she tells me that